welcome to Real Shame. It's a twice a week show where we review movies from our movie list of shame or movie blind spot. I'm Adam.
I'm Andy.
That's Andy. So earlier in the week we reviewed Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, which I don't think that subtitle was a part of the movie when it first came out. And we followed that up with 1940s Seahawk. So let's get into that.
And so you have taken it upon yourself to remedy the defects of Spanish justice.
Insofar as it lies within my power, yes, Your Grace.
And you conceive it to be part of your mission to assault and loot the ship of an ambassador to the court, Captain Thorpe. Do you imagine that we are at war with Spain?
Your Grace, Spain is at war with the world.
Enough of this!
So The Seahawk came out in 1940. It was directed by Michael Curtiz. It was written by Howard Koch and Seton Miller. And do you sail under a Spanish flag? Beware, Errol, see I say his name wrong. Errol Flynn's Captain Thorpe guards the English Channel for Queen Elizabeth I, trying to keep the Spanish armada at bay. That's my little review. That's my little kitsch.
Plot synopsis.
Plot synopsis, or whatever we call it. So, this is a movie that we both haven't seen. So what'd you think of The Seahawk?
I thought it was okay. I would say I liked it overall, but I was not super enthusiastic about it. After I watched it, I read some criticisms of it, and there's not really any. I mean, everybody's just like, this film is roses. I mean, it's golden. I didn't quite feel that way. It's directed by Michael Curtiz, same guy that did Casablanca. I think Casablanca is light years better than this film, honestly. I feel like Casablanca's pacing and everything is way better. It's just faster paced, more interesting. I think I've only seen one other Errol Flynn film, weirdly enough, and that is The Adventures of Robin Hood, which I liked. But in this movie, and I did not watch this back-to-back with Pirates of the Caribbean. I watched them on separate days, so it's not like I was riding the high of Johnny Depp or anything like that, or Orlando Bloom. But I just didn't feel like Errol Flynn commanded the screen like I thought he was going to, because you hear about him being this heartthrob guy back in the day. I mean, he was the Brad Pitt of his time, or whatever you want to call him. He was the successor, the heartthrob successor to people like Douglas Fairbanks and Rudolph Valentino. The ladies swooned over him, and apparently he was a real bad boy in Hollywood, which we'll talk about after we talk about the movie. But he just didn't. I like. When we watched Magnificent Seven, every time Yul Brynner's on screen, every time Steve McQueen's on screen, every time Charles Bronson's on screen, I just think they're cool. They command the screen. Errol Flynn, he's not bad, don't get me wrong, but I just was like, I don't know. I just didn't get really excited when he was kind of doing his thing. I also felt like this movie is slow. It's pretty long. It's over 2 hours. Not to be the too long movie guy, but I felt like some of it could have been shortened. Overall it's pretty exciting, with the battle scenes, and they go at one point in the movie, they go to, I think that's Panama, like the Isthmus of Panama or something, and that whole section is like a sepia tone.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes.
Which I thought was an interesting choice. I feel like his love interest in the film is very flat.
Feels shoehorned.
Yeah, and I don't think she's a good actress. And I looked up, because I don't really know who that is. Apparently, her name is Brenda Marshall. Yeah. I had to look her up because I'm not familiar with her, and she didn't have a very long Hollywood career, probably because she's not very good.
She was like a piece of wood.
Yeah. They have no screen chemistry whatsoever. Like, he starred with Olivia de Havilland in 12 movies. Yeah, 12 movies. And like, they're in the Adventures of Robin Hood together. I wish Olivia de Havilland should have been in this, would have been in this movie, because I felt like she was just really, really flat. But overall, it was long. I wrote down long, not as engaging as films like Magnificent Seven. It's just, he's not a cool enough character, or not a commanding enough screen presence. I liked some of the supporting characters. I liked the lady who plays Queen Elizabeth. I thought she was pretty good. And again, her name is Flora Robson.
She reminded me a lot of Olivia... who's in
Lydia Wilde?
No. She was in it was the recent Yorgo Lanthimos royal movie.
I can't.
I
think
want
of
to
her
say
name.
Olivia Cook, but it's not Cook, is it?
Yeah, it might be. I know who you're talking
I'll
about.
put
Yeah,
it here.
well, yeah, we'll throw it up there. But yeah,
Make it more work for
I
myself.
would say overall, I didn't dislike it,
Yeah.
but I felt like it could have been quickened a little bit, and yeah, it's just it. Again, the love story aspect of it, you could have tossed that because it stunk. And, yeah. Well, what were your thoughts on it?
I feel like we've seen 2 different movies.
Wow. Okay.
No, I mean, I'd say that. I really like this movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought that Errol Flynn was dashing and interesting, and I got that on-screen appeal and stuff like that. He had one first mate that looked way better than he did.
Oh yeah.
But and I was like, whoa, who's this guy? If I
Just
could see more
pushes
of
that
him.
guy out of the
But
way.
I thought he was awesome. I wish there was more swashbuckling in this movie, especially since I picked this movie because I've heard about his swashbuckling. So I wish there was more of that. I was very upset that it was very limited. But you get kind of like a big set piece towards the end when he's trying to, spoiler alert, make his way back to Elizabeth I and tell him about, her right-hand man's dastardly deeds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he's knocking out candles and all that stuff. It's kind of cool. I think the movie, and maybe I don't know if I'm biased, but I think the movie looks gorgeous. Like, I think, and it's in black and white. But I like the 2 first scenes in the royal, like you start on the Spanish royal kind of boardroom, I guess, with the giant map, and then you move to Queen Elizabeth. I just like the way that room looks. It's so barren that it looks like it's, on a soundstage and they just kind of put a map up on the wall and they just shot. But I just liked how big it looked and how barren it looked, and I thought those were very cool and very gorgeous. And I don't, like I said, maybe black and white movies just look, because of the contrast or whatever, but it just looked very pretty to me.
Yeah, it looks great. I mean, obviously we saw the Blu-ray of it,
Yeah.
the remastered kind of Warner Archive Blu-ray, which all of those they are known for doing stellar transfers. So yeah, it does look great. I do agree with that.
We were talking about acting, and also the captain on that Spanish ship at the beginning of the movie was terrible. Like, I don't normally notice terrible acting, but he was just like, no, don't go over there. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Are you, like,
I didn't really notice that,
It's
but
like they pulled some rando off the
luckily
street.
he has a pretty small part.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think the love story is like shoehorned in at the end and doesn't make any sense. Like, it's just her coming around to liking Errol Flynn's character. Captain Thorpe just feels like it was written that way. It doesn't feel organic or anything
No,
like that.
they have like I said, they have no chemistry at all. I did find it interesting though when they're riding back to the castle, she actually grabs him by the back of the head and pulls him in for a kiss, which you don't really see that, especially in movies that old. It's the guy who initiates the kiss, but she's like,
She's like, I'm gonna get some of that.
yeah, come here, come here.
The sepia tone in South America was crazy. Like, I thought it was cool. It's just like,
Yeah, it's different.
not something I expected. And it reminds me of this Reddit post that I saw where they talk about how Americans film for other countries. And so it's the same street, but like if it's like India, it's like yellowish hues. And if it's South America, it's like, or Mexico, it's like warmish hues and stuff like that. And
Interesting.
Saw that post slightly before I saw his movie. So when I was like, oh, they're in South America because it's all looks hot and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But he gets a lot of his homies killed and when they go to South America, for sure.
They get ambushed.
But yeah, I kind of want to see more of Errol Flynn's movies, especially like, if you think Robin Hood's better, I think we should probably add that to the list and watch it because I've heard of the Adventures of Robin Hood, so I think it's worth us kind of revisiting and going to.
For sure. And again, I it's not like I dislike Errol Flynn. And it's not like I disliked him in this movie. I just didn't feel like he was as commanding as maybe he could have been or should have been. Maybe it's just me. I feel like he's better in Adventures of Robin Hood. He also did another pirate movie, I think 5 years before the Seahawk, called Captain Blood.
Yep,
and I bring that up because that is the movie that Sloth is watching in the Goonies.
Oh, really?
He's watching Captain Blood, yes. Not the Seahawk, unfortunately, but he's watching Captain Blood.
And I don't think Captain Blood's available on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I don't think it is. The score, so interestingly enough, I was familiar with the score to this film before I saw it, because I think a long time ago my father had like an old vinyl record that had like classic film tunes or classic film themes, and the score is by a guy named Eric Wolfgang Korngold, not Cornhole, Korngold. But the theme to the Seahawk was on there, and I loved that theme, and I still do. So when the credits start playing at the beginning, it starts playing that theme, and I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." Yeah, I like
awesome.
that, because I would hear that a lot when I was a kid.
So you said Errol Flynn was a bad boy or notorious bad boy?
Yeah, before I get to that, I was going to say as far as the cast, you've seen some of these people before. Two of them you saw in The Invisible Man. Una O'Connor is in this. She's so there's the uncle and the niece who we think sucks at acting.
Yeah.
It's her handmaiden or whatever, the older woman.
Yeah.
That's Una O'Connor. She was the innkeeper lady in Invisible Man that was like, "Go and get our money," or whatever. And that money better not be invisible.
And I thought she was good as
she's a lot better at this because she's not shrieking and yelling the whole time.
And I like how she's like, tell Carl hi for me.
I loved that. I loved that. And
awesome.
Carl himself, Carl Pitt is the character's name. He's played by a guy named Alan Hale Sr., who you might not know, but you know Alan Hale Jr., his son. He was the skipper on Gilligan's Island. That's his most well-known kind of thing. And then the other guy that you've seen before is Mr. Claude Rains, Invisible Man, and Captain Renault in Casablanca. He is the uncle. He's Don Alvarez.
We're just doing.
He had like dyed black hair, jet black hair. And unfortunately, he's not in this movie as much as maybe he could have been. But he doesn't have that Captain Renault role either.
We're doing a whole bunch of Claude Rains movies.
We are, so weirdly no, and I'm sure we're gonna see him again. But yes, Errol Flynn was a. There's no two ways to put this. Errol Flynn had sex with everything in sight, for the most part. I mean, he was a Hollywood bad boy, and he was a hard drinker. He was a chain smoker. He lived. Unfortunately, he did some bad things. He was put on trial in 1943, just 3 years after this movie, for statutory rape.
Oh.
Yeah, but he was acquitted, but it ruined his public image. And
rightfully so.
Rightfully so, exactly. And then he ended up dying at the age of 50 in 1959 because he just smoked and drank and just was in terrible health. But fittingly, his autobiography is called "My Wicked, Wicked Ways."
Oh.
So
wonderful.
I guess that's appropriate because apparently he was a pretty hard drinking, hard living dude.
Yeah.
So yeah. The only other thing I was going to mention before I get to the and also, do you have anything else? Sorry.
No.
I don't want to butt in. I was going to mention that there was a book called The Seahawk that came out in 1915. They made a film version of it in 1924, which was silent. This version basically just took the title and really nothing similar to do with the plot. It was nominated for 4 Academy Awards: black and white art direction, original score by Eric Korngold, sound recording, and special effects. And I don't think it won anything. It's 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, and 87% audience score. Does not have a Roger Ebert. They didn't review it on their show, so there's no thumbs up or thumbs down. I'm fairly certain that both of them liked the film though, and would give it thumbs up. And Leonard Maltin gives it 4 stars, the top. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like a 4-star movie, but I definitely want to see. I can definitely see why part movies were very popular.
Yeah,
and I want to see more. So I mean, it's got me excited for that genre.
Well, he did, like I said earlier, he did 12 films with Olivia de Havilland. She was kind of his favorite leading lady co-star. He did 14 movies with the director Michael Curtiz, the guy that did Casablanca. So they did a bunch of stuff together. And I just want to say, I don't know, I didn't calculate
He's
exactly.
Michael Curtiz's Johnny Depp.
Michael Curtiz is, yes. And I did want to say, since we're mentioning Olivia de Havilland, I didn't calculate, because obviously we filmed these a few weeks before we actually air them, but whenever this is, around July 1st or right at the beginning of July, Olivia de Havilland will turn 104 years old. She is still alive.
She's still with us. Wow.
Up until this year, she and Kirk Douglas were both 100 or going to turn 104, but unfortunately he passed away in February.
Wow.
But yeah, she and Kirk Douglas are both centenarians, or in Kirk Douglas's case was. But she's still alive. It's about to turn, or maybe just turn 104, depending on when this episode airs.
That's awesome.
But July of 2020 is her birthday. Yeah.
That's great.
I thought it was cool.
No, I think it's very cool.
Yep. So, on to the
On to
Viewer
your
question.
All right. So, as I say every week, we always like to follow these up with a viewer question. And this question kind of falls on the heels of some news that a director made recently. So there's I'm actually pulling up the article so I can correctly quote it. So Wayne Kramer, who's been a director, he did Running Scared and a few other movies, Running Scared with Paul Walker. And he basically was talking about, here, let me just read this. I know this is going to be really interesting for you guys. He goes, here's an idea for Rotten Tomatoes. Allow filmmakers to lodge an appeal over the Rotten Tomatoes score for a film that's over 10 years old and currently scores more than 6.5 on IMDb. It takes decades or longer to know the real impact of a film. Sorry, this thing keeps on loading ads and it's driving me crazy. Peter, please limit your ads. This is almost unbearable. Know the real impact of a film. I'm quite sure a few critics might reverse themselves after 10 years. I've heard several critics who feel like they got it wrong on Running Scared and might do it differently today. You know, I don't think it's unknown that it's notorious that some critics will weigh in on a movie when it first comes out and don't like it. And it does take some time for critics or for people to come around the movie. Like one of our favorite movies, The Thing, wasn't well reviewed or well received when it came out in 1982, but now it is, you know, very well lauded, very high regard. So with all that said, what do you feel? Do you think Wayne Kramer's right?
Well, I think it's funny, the last little part that you read, it seems like he has his own agenda.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
like,
yeah, for sure.
critics have said that they got my movie wrong. So that's why I would like for people to not to.
One thing I wanted to add to that was, I think the reason why he kind of brought this up was the Rotten Tomatoes score are populated on a bunch of different sites. So whenever you look at a movie in Netflix or any kind of streaming service, it has a Rotten Tomatoes score in there. So I think he feels like it might change the way, or might de-entice, is that a word?
It is now.
It is now. Make someone not want to watch a movie if that score's low. So I think that's one of the reasons why he pointed to Rotten Tomato. But go ahead.
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, that's a tricky one. I mean, my first inclination is to say, no, I don't think they should do that. I do realize what he's saying, that because, yeah, I mean, I reverse myself on movies sometimes. I go, gosh, especially some of these movies that we have watched. I don't think I've completely reversed course on any movie that we've watched so far that I saw in the past, but there's definitely some that I just don't like as much. You know, I mean, they have definitely, my admiration for them has waned some with the benefit of the years that I've put on since I saw it, and the weight that I've put on since I saw them the first time. But I don't know. I think it's a cliche to say, but I think it may be like kind of a slippery slope if you do that. But I think all of those sites, and I guess he's mainly talking about critics' reviews, not user reviews.
Yeah, that's what I wrote it as.
So because let's face it, user reviews are a mess, and we're living proof. No, but they are. I mean, like if you look at sites like IMDb, I mean those, everybody is such a knee-jerk reactor. They're like, it's a 1, it's a 10, it's a 1, it's a 10. It's like, no. Very few things actually to me are 1s or 10s. Like those are extreme. Like it's somewhere in the middle, chances are. But people are like, I love this movie, blah, 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 10, 10, 10. It's like everything gets a 10. Sorry, I don't mean to jump off onto IMDb,
10,
but
10.
that is, but I feel like, Rotten Tomatoes, again, same kind of thing. I feel like it's nice to have that score, but if you are living and dying by that score, like whether or not you see a movie, I think that's bad. But I don't think the way to fix it is to have stuff drop off or lose things. If they want to go amend a review or something, but chances are they're not going to. I feel like that would be okay too. But I don't know that dropping scores after 10 years or whatever is going to do the trick. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you. I mean, I think we should always preserve those reviews because I think it is worthwhile in film history and film criticism.
Yeah.
Where I come down on it is the Rotten Tomato score doesn't really impact me watching older movies. Newer movies in the box office, it does, because if it's a really bad Rotten Tomato score and it smells like a stinker, then I'm probably not going to want to go see it, right?
Yeah.
So I do, or if I'm on the fence about a movie, I will let the Rotten Tomatoes score kind of push me either way, right? Because
sorry, I like you. I like the smells like a stinker.
it smells like a stinker.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I'll let that
chuckle.
kind of waver me, right?
Yeah.
But like when I watched The Thing, it wasn't, the Rotten Tomatoes score had nothing to do with The Thing. And that's a movie I saw recently.
Yeah.
Or like Alien, I even watched that more recently. I think Alien got good reviews, but I don't notice or care or seek out the Rotten Tomatoes score for these classic movies. I feel like if a movie's good enough, it's gonna bubble up in the popular Geist, right? Not Poltergeist, but it's gonna it's gonna bubble up in popular culture, and you're gonna know about it, and you're gonna want to seek it out, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if those reviews necessarily hinder a movie. Now, again, I only can speak for myself and the way I watch for movies. So maybe it does kind of affect older movies. But, I actually have heard good things about Running Scared and have kind of wanted to watch Running Scared. A guy I worked for in LA actually was a producer on Running Scared. But I've heard good things. And so I don't know if it necessarily deters me or not. I would be interested to kind of see like a wider survey on, how effective it is and all that kind of stuff. Because I meant here, we're going to date ourselves. That Last Days of what the new Netflix
Last Days of
movie
American Crime. Yeah.
got 0. And it's the number 2 or number 3 most watched movie reported by Netflix. According to Dan Murrell's charts, I think if I remember correctly. It's a very highly watched movie. So I don't think I don't know how much that critic review influences movies. So I don't know. So that's kind of where I fall. I don't think critics have a lot of time on their hands, so I don't think they're going to want to go back and amend it, right?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
And I don't know. I don't think it's gonna help in the way he thinks it's gonna help. But I'm open to data or ideas on why it would.
Well, I agree, and I think you bring up an excellent point. I agree with the fact that I think you're doing it right. I think when it comes to old movies, you really shouldn't let the Rotten Tomatoes sway you, because I want to say when I looked up to see how fresh the Seahawk was, how fresh the Seahawk was, I think it only had 12 reviews or 20 reviews or something like that. It only had a handful. Casablanca has tons, but movies like this don't have as many. But the newer movies have plenty because they're new and people are reviewing them as they see them now as they come out. So I think that score you can trust more than you can maybe an older film.
It's more aligned with modern sensibilities, I would say.
Exactly. And something like seeing 0%, plus all the crappy things I've read about it on the internet and on places other than Rotten Tomatoes, absolutely has me not wanting to watch The Last Days of American Crime. That and the fact that it's 2.5 hours. And I heard it's not a so bad it's good movie. It's just a so bad it's really, really bad
That was my
movie.
first question to you about that movie.
I have no desire to watch it. And again, I know we asked the question before, like, are we really swayed by critics and stuff? No, but I see things like that, and I'm like, I don't think I want to waste my time on this. So, but yeah, I think that's a good way to do it. You don't necessarily have Rotten Tomatoes be the end all be all when it comes to classic films. Newer films, maybe maybe actually take that into consideration. I think you're right.
So yeah, I agree. It's probably a very nuanced conversation, but that's kind of where we fall on the whole thing.
Yeah.
So if you have anything else?
Nope.
So if you have a question you'd like us to answer on air, shoot us an email, realshame@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram @realshame. And stay tuned next week as we pull another movie from our movie list of shames. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.